Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of the Low Code Cafe webinar. I see a lot of new faces today, so just to give you a brief introduction, this is an event that we do every week on Wednesday in the same hour, and it's a good time that we are having with our team and with our community. Usually, it's about technical topics, so we get to demo new features that we are getting out, looking at the roadmap, or even low coding some systems, So we built in the past, we built marketing system, we built task management systems within this webinar. So we try to make it hands-on and make it close to the community, and we are encouraging everyone to engage with us via chat, via Q&A, and also all these webinars are recorded and published on YouTube. So then if you visit our YouTube channel, and I'll post it on the chat in a few, you'll see all the past editions, and you'll see the hands-on part that I was speaking, like how to build systems in minutes, in hours with Plantain app, but also looking at the demos of features and other things. And today we do have a special edition. It's something that we haven't done before. It's something that our community members did ask often, show us systems that were built with Plantain, right? Because those are the great stories that we are telling. So then we also have with us our newest addition to our team, Angela Arjontes. She's from New York. She started with us in December, and she leads our sales efforts. So we thought that now it's a good time to bring Angela in, but also start talking more and more about our customers, and let Angela lead this conversation. So Angela, welcome to this Low Code Cafe webinar, and I will stop sharing and you can take the lead.
Thank you. Well, it is such a pleasure to meet you all, and I'm absolutely thrilled. And I do want to say just hello and welcome to our low code. Welcome to our low code built with Plantain app series. I'm going to be going in and sharing my screen, and I feel very welcomed into your family already. I'm seeing some attendees that know me, and it feels like home. So that feels great to kick off my first Plantain app presentation here today. So we'll go ahead and we will get going, and I am going to present. And let's do this. So again, the focus of today is what we're going to try and start something new, the Built with Plantain app series. We want to thank you again to all of you Low Code Cafe members for allowing us to showcase this outstanding application that has meaning, results, and technical relevance. Again, my name is Angela, and I have Patrick here with us as your Plantain app guides through the Vail Health Employee Assistance Program application. Our goal is for you to have a general understanding of the potential of what you can do with your Plantain app license. We challenge you to think of a use case you can leverage using Plantain app, or someone you can refer Plantain app to. So let's get started. The application we are going to delve deeper into today is an employee assistance program for Vail Health, and which an MVP was built out in just 20 days with 2 developers. This is going to be a feel-good story of how being able to operate with efficiency and speed can translate into saving lives. The problem here is accesses, service delivery, engagement, and tracking. I meant access. You may recognize these common themes as challenges your business encounters. While this use case and application may be specific to EAP, There are common patterns that you can extract and break down into the categories of modeling business logic, rules engine, workflow automation, dynamic forms creation, dashboards and reporting, and yes, integrations. But back to Vail Health. They were experiencing real pain in their communities over a 5-year period. They experienced triple-digit increases in ER visits due to anxiety, depression, and deaths due to suicide. The response was $60 million back into the community and creating a new EAP program to provide services to their employees and community members. They were seeking to rapidly build and deploy a solution for a customized EAP. It was the rapidly building and deploying which led them to plant an app for their solution. They wanted to build a dynamic application for providers that would trigger a vetting process like background checks, and upon approval, be matched to employees and community members needing assistance. They also wanted to be able to manage existing sessions and enable requests for additional sessions and generate invoices for the provider to submit to the appropriate payer to receive compensation seamlessly. Patrick will be walking you through their application, focusing on the following areas: provider registration in the application process, approval process for internal program staff to approve provider, patient registration and application process, how a patient requests a session, how a provider submits a session, and then on the back end, how the solution was constructed in PlantinApp. So what was the outcome of all of this? The endorsement speaks for itself. In the words of Mike Richards, Data Systems Director, PlantinApp has literally helped us save hundreds of lives by rapidly rolling out applications for mental health patients, and this speed translates in reducing suicide rates in the community. We're not slowing down for a second. Wow. Thanks, Mike. Now, imagine what PlantinApp can do for you. Take it away, Patrick.
Yeah, and Angela, since we are here, we also have Mike here on the webinar, so it will be great to hear from Mike firsthand his opinion about PlantinApp and his experience so far.
Fantastic.
Hello, Mike. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I've got you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So no, that was a great introduction, and I appreciate everyone taking some time to learn more about what we did here for specifically the Eagle Valley Vail Health, and then the entity I work for, which is Eagle Valley Behavioral Health. So as you stated, I am the IT Data Systems Director with Eagle Valley Behavioral Health, and the simplest way to explain our goal and mission is to essentially help our community that's been hurting for some time to get the access, care, and support they need. And recognizing the way in which we were going to tackle this particular, I guess really the technical aspects of all this, which is how we arrived at PlantinApp. We knew we needed something that was very flexible and scalable. It wasn't going to be a traditional build out in the sense of what you would expect as a traditional software application development environment team and that sort of stuff. We knew we were going to constantly be making a lot of changes on the fly and needed to be flexible within that first year. And quite frankly, PlantinApp was phenomenal at this. This allowed us to really get the foundation in place. Within the first 3 to 4 months, get something that was functional and that we could begin testing with. And then by months 8, 9, and 10, really have a product that we could roll out to the community and essentially start to connect patients and providers. Now, it's not all just the technical side either. There's a great deal of work that went into increasing our provider network within this area, which is something we're also very, very happy about, and made this project something that could be completed, because we increased our provider network from roughly 6 providers into over 60 at this time. What that means for the end user and for the patient and for the community is that there's more resources. It's that simple. So again, as far as it comes back to the technical aspect and Plant and App and how we got there, really just needed something that was scalable, flexible, and could be molded as we grew and could grow with us, and that could scale with us. Up to this point, I couldn't be happier with what we've been able to do. The first few months that we've had the system out and into the community, we've already onboarded another organization into the EAP platform, which is something that we intend to do. So this is going to be growing and scaling with us. So again, that scalability is really critical to what our efforts are, both in the short term and the long term. But just to put this in perspective, within the first few months of rolling this application out, we improved our EAP utilization rate from roughly 3% to around 14%. That's considerable. Okay, that's significant growth in that arena. To put that in perspective of hard numbers for this valley and this small mountain community, we had over 150 patients and over 300 sessions logged within the first 2 months. So again, just couldn't be happier with the team that I've been working with, Radu, Alex, Mihal, Andre, Bogdan, everybody, and just the solutions that we have and empowering us to do what we need to do. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Thanks a lot for being here. And if you are going to stick around, I think we'll also have a Q&A session at the end. So if people want to ask questions to you directly, it's good to know that you'll be around. Cool.
Great.
Thanks. So now let's pass it back to Patrick to show us the actual system. We've been talking a lot about it. So now let's see it in action.
Great, yeah, thank you, and thank you, Mike. That perspective is so wonderful to hear. I've been looking at this application a lot. Yeah, we haven't met, but because I'm new to Plant and App, but I really appreciate it a lot. It's amazing what you've accomplished here. So let me jump in. I just want to start out on the home screen here and show you just a couple things. So this is the landing page for Mountain Strong, and you'll notice that there's delineation up here for service providers access. This is where a provider can register into the system. Patient access, where the patient can register into the system. And then there's some detail pages about the different programs and some FAQs about the site. So, I'm going to jump over some things. I'm not going to show you everything in every detail because I want to get to the meat of what the application really does. So first I wanted to show you patient access into the system. So, you click on patient access, you come to a login page, and to register, the patient would click register. And I just wanted to show that the first thing they see is an indication to, an alert to them. So, is this an extreme situation that you're in right now? Do you need help now? And to point them in the right direction if they need help right now. And then they can positively answer, I'm not in extreme risk, and then follow through with the registration process. I have some patients already registered that I'm going to show, so I'm not going to show this registration form right here, but I wanted to show you that pop-up that is a call out to the patient to really assess what situation they're in. And so now I'm going to switch to service providers access. And once again, I get this login, but if I click over here, I can choose the register as provider. And this is important because there's 2 different paths that are followed based on whether the person's registering as a patient or as a provider, and that's pretty obvious, the reasons for that. I have a registration form already filled out here that I'm going to go ahead and submit. And so I'll click continue here. And then, so when the patient or when the provider gets into the system, the first thing they're presented with is a completely blank application. So they have to apply to be accepted into the EAP program. And there's a lot of information here. The first tab tells them all of the things that they're going to need to successfully complete the application. So I have an application that's mostly filled out, and so I'm going to switch to that screen now so that you don't have to sit here and watch me type a bunch of stuff. Let me just do a quick refresh here and then switch back to the, I just want to make sure I'm still logged in so I don't lose what I did here. There we go. So this is basically the same screen you were just seeing, a new provider in the system. But so the few things I want to point out, their application status is incomplete because they haven't submitted all the information they need to. And then up here, you're seeing that sections that still need their attention. And as I go through the screens here, you're going to notice that this is going to update. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the agreement screen. And I'm going to click here and just show you that the items they need to agree to in order to start providing service through the EAP program. So in order to check that box that I just checked, they need to agree to each of these. So here's an appendix that talks about their compensation levels. Agree to that. And then they need to agree to the final appendix here. And once they've agreed to all those, the box becomes checked. And once again, in order to check that box, they have to agree to the documents. And then the final thing here that they're agreeing to is the Olivia's Fund Scholarship Agreement. And this is for patients who are not either employees of Vail Health or employees of the Eagle County government through their EAP programs. If they're not going to be getting services through them, they can also, members of the community of Eagle County can participate in the program through a scholarship fund and have their compensation come through this scholarship. The provider compensation comes through the scholarship program. So the provider has to agree to the Olivia's Fund. And once they click I agree here, then all those boxes are checked. And I'll go ahead and update that. And now when we switch to the provider information field or provider information tab, it looks like I did lose. I practiced this ahead of time and it worked, but as we're aware, when we have live things going on, they don't always work out. So I'll just, I'm not going to be very creative here. I'm just going to type in a few things.
Now, while Patrick, this is Angela again, while Patrick is in here filling out this application, again, we want the spirit of this is designed for you to think, okay, maybe where can I embed an application or a form into an existing application or process that we already have, or maybe creating something new. This is just one look and feel of what that form can look like. And then it's also going to be interesting as Patrick evolves through the form with what happens downstream from here and where that where the workflow or automation that you may desire or those integrations can be deployed. So again, I just wanted to take a 30,000-foot view pull up while he's filling this out, because maybe you have a need for EAP or something related in the healthcare or human resources, people operations sphere, but maybe we can apply the same pattern to a problem that you're having.
So thanks, Angela, for filling the space there a little bit. I did want to point out here these and the multi-select drop downs here. So you notice that we have all these options here that the provider can choose about what kind of services they're going to provide, and then the category that they are providing services in. And I'm just going to select some here. You'll notice also that I can select all or clear all. So we have these options here. And those of you who are familiar with Plantain App and the different components already, I'm sure this is very familiar to you. So in telehealth, we'll say that, this provider is willing to provide telehealth. And then there's different practices that are in the system that they can associate with, or show that they have an affiliation with, or they can choose that they're in private practice. And then notice that Vail Health UMR is automatically selected. They can add any other insurance that they are able to be compensated through. So I'll click update here. And then, oh, I didn't put a date of birth in, so I'll just make something up here. And so that's a good example of validation for required fields. Let me click update again. And now I'm on the licensure field. And let me just go through and choose a few things here. And we'll just go here. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to show was the ability to upload files. So they need to provide a provider license. So if I click choose file here, I have some files already ready here that they can, that this provider can upload. So I have license, their license. They have to provide malpractice insurance. I'll put a random expiration date in here, choose file, and we'll get the insurance PDF. I'll just put in a resume here and say choose file. Once again, resume, and I'll say yes here. And then, of course, they need to provide a W-9 so that they can get their tax information sent to them at the end of the year. And then they need to agree that they're willing to have a criminal background check performed on them. So click yes here. And if I had any required fields missing, I'll find out. You notice that all the files uploaded, as soon as I clicked update, all those files uploaded and automatically pushed me over to the confidential questionnaire tab. And once again, I want to bring your attention back up here where it says sections that need your attention. So notice that the agreement, provider information, licensure tabs are all missing from here now. So now I just need to do the confidential questionnaire and the attestation tab. One other thing I want to point out is that, so this is obviously kind of a lengthy application process, and they may not have all the information right away. So the provider could actually leave the system now and come back later. And when they logged in, they would come back to this screen and still see that these are the items that they still need to complete. So on the confidential questionnaire, most of these are here just the way they need to be. I do want to point out is that anywhere in here, if I click on yes, the provider does need to provide an explanation as to why they said yes to any of these questions. I'm going to go ahead and click on no for all of them. And I think that's complete now, and click update. And on this final tab is where they are agreeing. I'll just so they have to put in their name and title here, and then they sign this, and they're agreeing that that the information obviously they provided is true to their to the best of their ability, and that they are that they're willing to have the background check done on them, and they can sign right here. Click on update. And notice now I no longer have the sections that need attention, and I now have the, my status here has changed to the application being ready for submission, and I can submit the application for review. So if I click on submit application for review, my status then changes to application under review. So now this provider has gone through the entire application process and has submitted their application for review. Now I'm going to log in as a staff person for the Mountain Strong program. And if I go to staff and then to provider management, I see that this is the provider that I just registered, Jan Levinson. And her status of application under review. So I'm just going to show you the process that quickly, obviously. I think that the actual review process, I'm sure Mike would be able to tell me, would be much longer than what I'm going to do here. But I want to show you that if I click on view application, all the information that was just submitted is available right here in line to be reviewed by the staff, including all the way down to the signature that's provided. And then if I go back to the drop down here and choose the criminal check status, that opens a pop-up. And so obviously staff would have to do the criminal background check. And then once it's done, they could come in and say that it came back okay. And they would have to choose a file that provides that proof that it came back okay. There's my file that I have here. And so that gets uploaded. They click on update. And notice now that the criminal check status column has okay, and the the status has changed to okay in that column. So, and then I want to go back and so let's say that the all the other information has been reviewed, and they decide that yes, we're going to go ahead and approve this provider. If I click on application status, the current status is under review, but then I can change it to accepted and click on update. And now notice that my status column changes to application accepted. But they still have access restricted here. And when I drop down this, notice now that I have completed the background check and I've changed the status to accepted. I now have another option here to activate the provider's account. So up until this point, if a patient were to come into the system and try to match with a provider, they would not see this provider. And it's only this activate account option here that I'm about to click that will then make this provider available to be selected by a patient when a patient registers into the system. So I'll go ahead and activate this account. And I get just a confirmation here that this is really what I want to do, and say, yes, I want to activate this account. And now you see that under account status, this provider is active. Okay, so then what happens once a provider is active? Well, let's look at the patient process now. So I'm going to switch to another screen here, and I have a patient registration form filled out here, ready to submit. I'll go ahead and click on continue. And then once I do that, I get to this page here where I have a little bit of additional information that needs to be provided. And so I'll go ahead and just complete that here. And let's see, 81621, I think it's. Yep. So, and notice when I put in the zip code here that the city and state automatically completed. And let's put in a date of birth for Daryl here. We'll say, and just to do something a little different there. And so this is an important question right here, because this question right here will the patient has to live or work in Eagle County. So if they click no, they get a message indicating that you have to live or work in Eagle County to proceed. If I click yes, then they are presented with the next set of questions, and this question right here will also change the path that the patient is going to take in the system. The options are, of course, the Vail Health EAP program, the Eagle County Government EAP program, or other employer. And this is where the funding through Olivia's fund comes into play here. So if they choose Vail Health or Eagle County, they get an indication that's what they're going to participate in. Then they need to provide an employee name and employee email so that their employee status with Vail Health or the Eagle County government can be confirmed. But if I switch to the Olivia's fund option, it just shows me here that I'm selecting to participate in Olivia's fund, and I don't get the employee verification fields. And so I can choose any of these options here. I'll go ahead and choose no insurance and click on update. And if I had chosen the Vail Health program or the Eagle County, well, first let me just show you this. So it says now I've been updated successfully, and notice that it says please proceed to the Olivia's fund application. So I'll go ahead and click go back to the dashboard, I'm going to select a provider and we're going to see the Olivia's Fund program. But if I had chosen Vail Health or Eagle County, I would then be able to go directly into selecting a provider. But if I click the select provider here, you see that I get the Olivia's Fund application here. So there's additional information they need to provide, and including these agreements here that they live or work in Eagle County. So there's lots of things they need to agree to here, and they have to provide at least one reason why they will qualify for the scholarship program. So if I click here, the applicant does not have health insurance, or the applicant has a health insurance plan with a high deductible, then they're able to use the Olivia's Fund program. So I'm going to go ahead and go to another screen now where I have a patient that is, let's see if they're still logged in. Nope. Let me go ahead and, that patient timed out. Let me switch to another screen here. Okay, so just give me a second here and I will log back in as this user. I just need to go back and find.
And Patrick, on the login part, as you're doing, I believe that we can also integrate with single sign-on type functions, right? Functionalities.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that
so
is definitely
just,
possible. Yep.
Again, though we are so proud of what Mike and his team have developed with the Vail Health EAP solution for Eagle Valley Behavioral Health. We just want to continue to be mindful of where you can extend the same functionality into a use case that you have in mind, and maybe what are other things you can do beyond what you see on the screen in front of you.
Hey guys, I'll jump in too here. Patrick, you've done a great job of explaining the process thus far, but I also want to highlight a couple of really important things.
Sure, yeah, please.
That I think speaks again to the flexibility and scalability of what we're trying to do here. And when we go through the provider onboarding, you know, that's not only just a spot where we have to be very diligent about vetting all of our providers and ensuring they have the accolades that they need to participate, but it also creates a single place of record for us, right? And that was a big part of this, is that we needed something that was efficient and useful to find, manage, and more or less keep track of all of our providers in this network and as we grow. And that's not only just from a licensure standpoint and all the uploads and that sort of stuff, but also just for our own sanity, really, just that we could always have at the tip of our fingers an active database to find, manage, and communicate with those providers in network. The other thing that's really important to point out about the provider onboarding process is that there was a lot of functionality that translates into the patient experience from that provider onboarding process. Most importantly, the agreements. Those agreements correspond directly to when and where providers will be displayed for a patient to be selected, or the patient to select that particular provider. So there is cause and effect there. Same thing with the various challenges and their areas of specific disciplines and who they service. We also utilize that to filter the providers that we display to a patient based on what the patient then enters. So again, I want to just point out some of the logic that's built into this workflow and into this process, that it's not just a simple application. It actually plays a really important part in the rest of the system. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, thank you. And just to underscore a few of the things you said, so if I go back to the provider that I registered and click on that view, I have access to those documents that when I was in as the provider that I uploaded. Those documents can be accessed right here within this view. So I can click any of these and download that document to look at it. So you were talking about, you know, the ability to make sure you have access to the documentation easily, and that's one way of accessing it. And also the other option I have here, if I click on, so this is, you know, a very linear view of the application, but if I click on edit application, then as the staff person, I actually have access to that same view that we were seeing as the provider, and I can go through and look at this, all the information that was submitted this way as well. So just wanted to, you know, underscore that. And now, and the next thing I'm going to do is go through that process of a patient choosing a provider. Of course, I don't think it'll be as dynamic as what we would see if we were using the actual application, because we don't have all those providers in the system that you have. We you know, have and I'm sure everyone realized this. This is a copy of the real application. It's not the actual application that we're working in. So for this patient here, they've gone through and they've completed their process here. They're in the system as an EAP participant. And so I'll go to select a provider. And so I first get asked, who am I seeking service for? And I didn't point out on the previous screen. Let me just go back and do that, because I want to make sure that's clear also, is that in the system, you can also, the participant can have dependents. They can add a new dependent to the system. So if I chose add new dependent, then it would, the next screen would ask for more information about the dependent. But I'll go ahead and choose the primary here and say select a provider. And and then of course, if it was a dependent and the dependent is a minor, you would say yes here. But in this case, I'll say no. And type of service, so we're seeking adult service, and let's just say that she's looking for help with anxiety and depression. And this is an important distinction here as well, because this changes the compensation level for the provider. If the provider provides services in any language other than English, they get, I think it's an additional $20 added to their compensation. So I'll go ahead and just choose English here. I just wanted to point that out, and click continue. And so then we are into the provider selection screen. And so here you can see that I have those options selected here. And if I don't really have a need, obviously, with two providers to to do a filter, but these filters would, I've seen how many providers are in the real application, and this screen goes on and on and on. There's a lot of providers here, so these filters do help the patient narrow down their selection of providers. So I'm going to go ahead and click on request provider for John Doe here. And I could also request two providers and to have the potential of being connected with different people, have some options, but I'm just going to stick with the one here and say complete process. And you see the notification down there that the request was sent. And here I can go back to dashboard. And now I can see that I have this pending connection with a provider here. So now I want to switch over to that provider's screen, and I'll just refresh the page here to make sure we're still logged in. So now you can see that John Doe, this provider, has a pending connection with Meredith Palmer, the patient that we were just seeing. And we see this information here. John can click on patient details to see a little bit more information about the patient. Click OK. They have a phone number and the email address to connect with the patient. One thing I want to make clear is that this system doesn't do scheduling. So the patient and the provider has to connect with the patient, and they will schedule their time together. But once the provider has made that connection and has provided services, then they come back to the Mountain Strong application to indicate that they provided services and so that they can get their compensation. So right now, John's going to accept Meredith as a patient. And so now he doesn't have any pending patient requests. If I switch to the active patients, you see that Meredith is now an active patient. And so here, so let's say he's contacted her, they've made an appointment, he provided services, and so then he would come back here and click on Add Session for Payment. And once again, this is an important distinction here. We'll go ahead and choose English for this particular patient. Click Add, and then they have to provide the service date and a diagnosis code. And I admittedly have no idea what the diagnosis codes are. But the provider obviously would know their diagnosis code, and then the procedure code. And I'll go ahead and click Add. And now you can see that that one session for Meredith has been used. There's a limit of up to 6 sessions initially, but the provider can, once they hit 6, let's see if I can make that happen here. I'll go ahead and say that another session was provided here. Add. And so now we've hit 6 sessions for this patient here. And you see that I now have a continuation of care request option here. So the provider can say, okay, we're not done with this patient. We need more sessions, and they can do this continuation of care request. And then they just provide a reason why they need to continue with the patient. Click confirm. That probably has to do with email being disabled in the system, so don't worry about that, but I'll go ahead and close this. And so once that has been submitted, then the provider can continue with the patient. So now, oh, I moved that over here. Oh, I want to go back now to the staff login, and so we looked at earlier, looking at the provider dashboard, or the provider management, so they can approve providers. But now we're going to take a look at another part of the system called the payment dashboard, and this is where the invoicing actually happens. So I land here on the all sessions tab. And you can see that John Doe is the only provider that I have right now that has provided services. They provided a total of 13 sessions. He's provided a total of 13 sessions. He has 11 sessions that haven't been invoiced yet. So let's just take a look at those sessions. If I expand that, you can see that all the sessions he provided load right in line, so I can see them all. And these are all the ones that haven't been invoiced yet. You can see down here, the ones that have been invoiced, I actually can access that invoice right here in line in the application. So here's the invoice that was sent for this session. And there's one more here. So I have one more invoice there that you can see. So now, how does the provider actually get their compensation? So, I can see the invoice here. If I switch to invoiceable sessions, you can see here a list of all the pending invoiceable sessions in the system. They're all for John Doe. And then I wanted to show you no-show sessions. Let me put in a date here, go from January 1 to 31, and John Doe. And so now you can see that for John Doe, there was one no-show session that happened. He can get compensated for that no-show session. I believe that's only one no-show. Mike, if you want to correct me on that, feel free to jump in. Then if I go to past invoices, you see those 2 invoices that I just showed you in line. So I was able to see them, sorted by the provider here. Here I can add some filters here to see, okay, so exactly what sessions have we invoiced already? And then on this final tab here, we have the ability to review or complete invoices. So once again, let me put in my time frame here to 31. And you can see down here, these are the pending sessions. I'm going to change this slightly, and I'm going to change it to, let's say, the 18th. And when I do that, you see that my the list down here updated to significantly fewer sessions for payment because I changed the time frame that I was going to. So actually, let me just go from the 1st up to the 17th, since that seems to have more options there. And now you can see that list updates again. I can review the invoices, and what this does is creates the file and allows me to take a look at them. So I click that, and you can see down here, I have the invoice review, and I can see a file there. But if I go ahead and just click the generate invoices, that will actually send the invoices for all the ones that match my criteria here. So I'll click generate, and you can see that I get the update there that the invoices have been sent. And if I go to past invoices, refresh here, you can see now that I have an extended list of past invoices. So now, I guess do we have any questions coming in from anybody so far? I don't think so. If not, I'll go ahead, and I want to show you some of the back end on this application. So let me switch back to this view here, and I want to switch to entities. And I just wanted to show you the complexity of this application. So, you know, we've covered the main points, but there's a lot going on in this application that we didn't get to take a look at all of it. So I just wanted to show you this view here. And then if I click to dependency view, here's where you can see all the relationships between the different entities in this application. For those of you who are not real familiar with PlantinApp yet, I want to point out that everything you're seeing is corresponding, all the entities correspond to a table in the database. And when you create an entity, all your relationships between the different tables are being created for you. So all your foreign keys, all the appropriate connections between tables is happening automatically for you when you are creating your entities, including the relationships. So if you have a one-to-many relationship between entities, you're actually getting a relationship table created for you in the database automatically when you create the entities in the application. So I'll just finish scrolling through this so you can take a look at all the relationships that exist in this application. Next, I wanted to go over to workflows and show you an example of a workflow. In this specific application, they kept a lot of the workflows in the forms, but here's an example of a workflow that is here, and all the workflows that are in the forms could be created in the workflows section of PlantinApp and then referenced in the forms and grids on the buttons. But let me just take and edit this. This is a good example of a workflow with some different flows in it. What this does is it's taking a specific patient and making sure that their form of reimbursement is being correctly dealt with in the system. So based on if the employer value equals 1, they're an Olivia fund. If it equals 2, they're a Vail Health EAP patient, and if it equals 4, then they are an Eagle County government patient. And you can see here the output determines the package value for the patient in the system. Switching over to automation is what I wanted to show you next. And so I was showing you earlier the invoicing page. There's in the system also the possibility for automating the invoicing process. And I wanted to just give you a quick overview of that because it gives you an idea of how the invoices are being created. All these jobs right now are disabled because this is a testing system for one thing, and also the invoicing is being dealt with on the invoices page. But if I expand this job right here and click on edit, the first thing I want to show you is that, so we have a trigger here so that this job will run on an interval of 14 days. So every 14 days, they'll run the invoicing. And if I click on generate PDF, you'll see that PDF gets created, and this is the content. We'll take a look at where that content comes from in just a moment. It's creating a file that's being saved in the invoices directory of the system. And then we're also storing a token so that we can reference that file in the subsequent actions on this job. So if I scroll down and then go to run SQL query, what we're doing here is we are, so you can see that the token that I got for the file ID is here. And so this query here is actually updating the database so that when we load that invoicing page that I showed you earlier, and I showed you there was a link to the invoice, what this does is updating the database so the link to that invoice gets put into the system and you can access the invoices from that interface. And then if I scroll down a little bit farther, you can see here that an email is being sent. And what this does is it attaches that file. So once again, here's that token right here. And I'm attaching a, to the email that's being sent. And the file gets sent to the appropriate party for to provide the reimbursement to the provider. So I mentioned this in the PDF here. Where does the content of that PDF come from? So this is a token in the system. And I just have to put a little plug out there that I get very excited about tokens. Tokens are an amazing thing in PlantinApp, and right here you can see that these are all tokens that are included when you install the system from fresh start. So there's a lot of power already here, but then the real power comes in that everything you see down here are tokens that have been created custom to this application, and you can use them anywhere in the application to access data from the system. So specifically, for the invoice example we were just looking at, it was the invoices EAP PDF token we were looking at. I'll edit that. And what you're seeing here is just the template. So this is a Reza script that it produces the template for the PDF. And this is where the content of the PDF comes from. So right here, you can see that we have another token here, invoices.eap data. So this is where the data that completes this template is going to come from. So if I go back over to tokens and then go to EAP data and edit this, that template is being filled out with the data that gets returned by this database query that you see here. So this database query gets run and it fills out that the EAP PDF template, and then this token here, invoices EAP PDF, gets pulled into that generate PDF action that you saw when we were looking at automation, and then that's how the file gets created to send to the payer. So I've said a lot. I've been talking probably a little bit fast for some of you, I suspect, but I wanted to make sure we get it all in. I want to make sure we have a little bit of time for any additional questions. So if anybody has questions, feel free to pop into chat or raise your hand. Or if anybody on the PlantinApp team wants to add anything to what I've said, please jump in as well.
While people are pulling that stuff in, Patrick, it's Reza. So I was just wondering,
Yes.
like, I noticed we didn't have a lot of workflows in there, and I know that, you know, this site was being built originally before we had a lot of the workflow functionality.
Right, yeah.
And what's your thoughts on what it would take to migrate, kind of lift and shift some of that logic into workflows now that we have it?
So I think that probably Radu might be able to answer that better, but I would say it would, you know, you would have to go through each of the forms and look at those steps that are in the forms, and the important thing would be to find where the common actions are in the forms and grids. So where you have a button in a grid and a button on a form, there's the potential there that those buttons do the same thing. You know, they might have a common thread that happens, but then you can create one workflow that you then reference on both of those buttons. And so that's where I think that the magic of using workflows in PlantinApp comes in, because I've been there. I've created stuff where I've done those action stacks on a form, and then I have to go to another form or to a grid button, and then I have to recreate that same action stack in that other place. But with workflows, you create the action stack in one place, and then you reference the workflow wherever you are in the application, and then if you need to make a change to that process, wow, then it becomes a lot easier then once you have to make a change to that process. So I think it's worth it, but on the front end, yeah, it might take a little bit of time, but I think the end result would be very worth it to have all those actions in workflows in the system. Definitely.
Oh, right on. Agree.
Yeah.
Not fan too.
Guys, aren't we utilizing some of the workflows for our onboarding? And that might be a question back to Radu. And what I mean by onboarding is that we've had a great deal of interest from a lot of partners in the community that want to participate in this, right? So this met the needs of Vail Health specifically first, because that's who we work for. And then the idea is that we scale this out into other organizations such as Eagle County Government. That's a good example. But we have many other entities that want to take advantage of this because this solves a lot of problems, and it's just a much more efficient, it's kind of the first of its kind of process for thinking through an EAP system this way, right? Empowering the end user to initiate the care that they need, as opposed to having to walk down to HR and talk to a colleague and divulge personal information. This really allows them, it empowers them. Okay, so but going back to the workflow, I believe we're utilizing the workflows as we move into the onboarding process. So again, we've already onboarded Eagle County Government, but now we're looking at onboarding anywhere from 3 to 5 more entities in the next couple of months. And with that, we define what their EAP is in the system via the workflow. So the workflow allows us to have a very quick process for onboarding. So we did the heavy lifting initially, as you said, Patrick, but now we move into a process that if, one of the major resorts or hotels or whoever it is that's next on to onboard, we fill out some basic credentialing information, define what makes up their EAP, meaning how many sessions do they get per package, where we ship those invoices to, and they're up and running. So I just want to point that out.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that process is probably, and Radu's here. Yeah, so Radu, if you want to comment, feel free. But that process, I suspect, is probably in the forms and grids that are associated with those pages right now, unless I'm.
No.
So this is
You're right. The flows itself are in the forms and the grids. As Reza mentioned, we started the project in the very early stages of Plantain App, and we kind of start working without workflows. And now we're starting to, everything that we do in the future, we are planning to do with workflows. You can see there that workflow has ID 7, so we had 6 tries before this one.
Yeah.
So some things happens in the past, but we are still they're stabilized now, and we are planning to move more and more of the features to workflows. But definitely the next steps that we're going to do into the application, exactly what Mike described, we are planning to do with workflows, only with workflows.
Right on. I do see a new question that's come in, Patrick. I'll just call it out. Besides a web app, can one generate a native mobile app in the same way? If yes, can one generate both a web app and a mobile app with the same workflow definition, or they must be implemented separately?
So I don't know if you want to take a stab at answering that, or.
Yeah, and I want to make sure I understand the question. Do we mean so we're saying native mobile? No, this wouldn't generate out native mobile. We have some experimental functionality with that, but you would be able to install like an icon, and it would feel like an app, but it's all responsive, so it's going to run on mobile just fine. But native mobile technology is different. Now, with regards to the workflows, and something you can do with Plantain App is use Plantain App, like there's this concept called a headless CMS. And this is where you are kind of separating your front end in your application logic. And I think that's maybe what we were getting at in the second part of that question, from the back end and the business logic. So like your workflows, your data model, that sort of stuff. And absolutely, in that case, you can expose the workflows through APIs, and the same business logic that's driving the website, you could then use any sort of technology, native mobile technology, where you can very quickly, because again, that was a very, very rich experience there. That stuff's just never going to fit some of it or be appropriate for a mobile phone anyhow, right? But getting access to alerts and being able to interact or take some light touch type things, view your documents, upload things. There are mobile frameworks for creating that sort of UI very quickly, similar to kind of low code conceptually. But where they fall flat is they're not going to be able to do all this heavy lifting from a data model and business logic processing perspective. What they can do is call APIs. And so you'd be able to simply have like take a form input or a button or something, and when it's pushed, it will call this same platform, this same system, these workflows, and return the appropriate data or response back. And so you'd have a very consistent experience as far as knowing that the logic's going to be the same. You're not recreating it. And kind of most importantly, all roads are leading to Rome, right? So all the data is still going into one system being served out of one database. So I hope that helps answer the question.
And I'm just showing here real quick that, for each entity that you're creating in Plantain App, you're getting some APIs automatically created, but of course you can add your own more custom APIs into the system as well.
Cool. So yeah, we are a bit over time. So
yes,
just want to take in account everybody's time. So very, very nice demo today. Thanks for doing it for us. Of course, thanks Mike for being here and give us your first-hand experience. And thanks everyone for joining this webinar. Some of you every week. It's very good to see you and continue the journey of building systems and stories like this together, stories that change life in the end, ultimately, even if it's on just the technical side, the geeky stuff, or on the human side in the real world, like we've seen today. So thanks everyone. Thanks Angela, thanks Patrick, thanks everyone for being here, and we'll be seeing each other next week.